Hello, hello.
Hello.
So, are you taking me closer? Support.
All right.
So, we're a creative studio based over in Farringdon. We set up 5 years ago. Myself and two others, Lee and Nick, and we cross over print, digital, motion graphics. One of our specialisms, I guess, is fantasy user interfaces for films. So we're going to talk through a couple of projects that we've worked on and how they're relevant to technology, I guess. So there's some other territory team members over here that are all responsible for the projects that we're talking about. Put your hands up. Come on. So Peter spans both of these projects, but these guys were also very much involved, and it's very much a team effort. So, like I say, we span film, computer games, brands, with projects like Zero Dark 30, Prometheus, Guardians of the Galaxy. It tends to be using user interfaces to tell a part of the story, maybe a part of the story that the actors couldn't, or that a large visual effects shot couldn't. Perhaps someone needs to say, okay, we're going from here to here, and really the easiest way to say it is with a map graphic on a screen. So we deal with those kind of tricky little narrative problems that come up and can be told with motion graphics in some way. So just quickly, to explain how user interfaces have been used in films and why it's important to storytelling, a key reference really from my childhood was Star Wars, and the key, I guess the important notion to take from the Star Wars graphics for me was that it told a story in a split second. A lot of our work is judged in a 3-second burst, hopefully. Sometimes it's a background element, but if we get a hero point where we're telling a story, then it's 3 seconds, maybe 4 seconds, maybe you'll get a cutaway to another shot, but it needs to tell that story point very clearly and immediately for the entire audience. So that's one important notion that we take away from those films. And then going top right to The Island, that was one of the first films I remember where computer graphics or computer screens and interfaces were used as a story point on a physical touch screen. So the actors were looking down at it, they were sharing the content, and that point was being used to tell a story in some way. And then the references that we get all the time, Minority Report, bottom left, and Iron Man, bottom right. Minority Report was based on on a research project at MIT, but it was important to the film industry, I guess, because it started to use interfaces in a way where the actor's reaction became sandwiched against the interface. So suddenly the content on the screens became relevant to the actor's performance. It wasn't an over-the-shoulder shot where you were looking at a screen and then cutting back to the actor reacting to it in some way. And that elegance or that purity in telling a story very quickly in shot is important. And so we've found a trend moving more towards glass screens and projecting onto glass screens where you can kind of see your graphics and see your design work against the all-important actor and their emotional kind of reactions. And then taking that a step further, it was a really clever device on Iron Man, kind of pulling the interface into a very personal space on a close shot. I can't really think of where that had been done before, and it set a particular technical level for us as a skill set, really. And Jarvis as an idea of offering up intelligent content before Stark maybe thought he needed it. That's a clever notion, and it's kind of being worked more and more into films, and it's coming through in kind of the way that we interact with devices now, where they're starting to trace through data and understand user behaviors, and then providing information and content based on those interactions. So one of the films we're going to talk about today, we worked with Alex Garland and the art department on this film, Ex Machina, which is about, I don't think, well, is it?
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
Yeah, I'm not going to ruin it. Essentially, a programmer that works for a software company wins a competition, gets flown out to a remote Scandinavian location, and meet the owner of this company who engineered the operating system from the bottom up. And he is looking to build a believable AI, artificial intelligence, that can fool him and be convincing as an intelligent life form. So we were very aware that Alex, the director, was doing a lot of research. And our brief on these films can be quite lightweight at times, but we can always go back to the script. And fortunately, Alex had done a lot of research on kind of, I guess, the way in which people would really code things and the way that people would really interact with technology if they were kind of coming from a research-based project and providing a realistic technology. So we're dealing with near future rather than, I don't know, Star Trek or something which is so far off that you can kind of make up a lot of it. This needed to feel based in an amount of reality, and we needed to tie closely to that, but also project enough in the future that it became interesting and believable that he would actually be building an AI. So we tied into the script, and we eked out all the little moments that we thought could be relevant to the characters that you're using the technology, and if there was anything in there that told us something about the corporation itself and the kind of the logics around the technology. And Alex did mention, operating systems and software companies, people like Google, who are moving towards a very simple, elegant, modernist aesthetic that is about intelligently presenting information as and when you need it. But we needed to be aware that the characters were very code-based. They knew how to get to the roots of the system very quickly. So we had to kind of chart along this graph of, okay, where's this kind of modernist simplicity going? But also, if we were really getting down to the raw code, how do you format that type in a beautiful way, but in an authentic way to how programmers work? So we've got another team at Territory that deal with digital apps and touchscreens and all that sort of thing, and we constantly consulted with them in terms of formatting the type correctly. And Alex really wanted the programmers, they could pause a frame and kind of check it out and make sure that it was along the right sort of lines. I mean, we didn't suggest how you would program AI, but we were suggesting if you just wanted to quickly access a video file, instead of double-clicking through a load of folders, how could you quickly write a bit of code to get to that root folder or something? And a lot of the work that we do at Territory is on-set delivery. So there's two ways of delivering graphics for films. We can turn up to the set with a whole load of computers, a lot of cables, computer screens, and plumb it in. And then the other way of delivering it, which I'll talk about a bit later, is visual effects delivery, which is you get given the shot at the end of the film, and it might have green screen in the screen, and then you insert the graphic afterwards, and you have to base that graphic on the actor's performance. So the advantage of delivering on set is that we get sight lines for the actors. The actors know what they're looking at, and they can react to it. They can perform against it. It gives the director the option of shooting in different ways. The director of photography can start to think about lighting and think, okay, well, I don't need to put these extra lights in to light the actor. I can actually just light with the screens and get some movement from the screens that can create kinetic movement and give interest. And so we really enjoy on-set delivery. It also means that we get to kind of go and deliver graphics on set in front of director and actors and kind of talk it through with them, which is often a pleasure. And it helps us understand what's needed from a film in terms of working with the director closely and getting the graphics just right. So we'll often create little interactive programs. So you can mash the keyboard, and it doesn't matter what they press. The right type will come up on screen. So if, I don't know, James Bond is hacking into MI5, he'll always type the right password because we've programmed it that way.
It's addictive, trust me. I mean, like, you can
It's good
probably
fun.
try it at the end of the
Yeah,
thing.
if you want to look like a really cool geek. So we try to keep it simple and modernist and just be about the little details and craft it. And looking at some of the sets and the designs, it was all shot at Pinewood, and then they did exterior photography, I think out in Norway. Is that right?
Yep.
and so we kind of cued into that a little bit and kind of enjoyed the kind of simplicity and elegance of that, and then just, as I say, gave it that layer of code just to kind of sell in that kind of technical detail. You can probably talk at this point.
Yeah.
So we were working with the art department, and they really enjoyed, I think, working with us, and they were aware that we were kind of a multifunctional studio, and we could do other things. And they had this aspect of the film where they needed to convey the idea that if there really was this billionaire and he wanted to build an AI and he wanted to machine this skeleton, he probably wasn't going to know how to do it all himself, but he also didn't really want the world knowing what he was doing. So he would need these series of blueprints that he could send out portions to contractors, say, maybe military companies and all that sort of thing, get the various different parts made and machined, and then brought back to his lab, and he would assemble it all. So that was his kind of base logic for this. And so we needed to help the art department sell that idea and create these blueprints. And I think we're all familiar with IKEA construction manuals and the beautiful Haynes manuals as well. There's a beauty in the detail. It's very functional, serves a purpose, and there's a visual language to that you can tie into quite quickly, and it just feels right for, we all understand when we see that, we all understand it's a blueprint and it's people figuring out the construction process. So Peter made this. Go on, Peter, off you go.
Yes. Hi, I'm Peter. I was supposed to be the backup dancer and the sort of like the backing vocals for this presentation.
10 minutes, 10 minutes.
All right. So this is what we came up with. We got this very nice, but not too detailed model from, was it DNAG or
DNAG,
some other VFX studio? And what was surprisingly hard to do is if you pick it apart and try to do a Haynes manual-like thing, you immediately recognize that an engine, when you do that kind of thing, consists of like 10,000 little parts, and that makes it so nice, that makes it so dense. And when you take this apart, it's being like 500 pieces, so it looks very, very sparse. So we started to sort of go through the archives and come up with other stuff. We just added bits and bobs there that doesn't mean anything, or doesn't make it like it's not functional, but looks cool. And part of the thing is, although it's based in technology and it should be like fairly futuristic, this is a film.
That's going to go out on Twitter now, don't you?
All right. So yeah, this is how it ended up. These are the prints that ended up being in the film, and we really enjoy that because most of the work that we do is basically on-screen stuff, and it's digital and it looks really nice. But print is something else, as we heard earlier.
About that permanence, yeah.
So really loved it. Little details, graphic design on top of the parts. We really enjoyed this project.
Build in that believability and authenticity, and the idea that we're cataloguing all the parts, so that they could reassemble and evolve the design process.
You almost can build this robot if you have these plans, which I have, but I don't plan to take over the world for now. But
and then Miles, a very different project. It started off as a small project. The director Oliver had seen our work on Guardians of the Galaxy and approached us once he'd already shot the film. And he's a young director, loads of energy, and he was looking for a way to sell a concept into the bigger studios and to essentially become a fully fledged Hollywood director. So he produced a little 2-3 minute feature with really high production values, beautifully shot, and he sent us the film, and the classic, there was just blank screens everywhere. And he said, right, okay, fill that, please. And so we needed to start to research and understand the idea of the film, and it was all about this military drone that had kind of been sent out into the real world, and some teenage couple had discovered it and just seen it as it had dropped out of space or something, and that they kind of almost treated it as a pet. But there's this kind of idea that there's a military operative sitting behind all of this, viewing the world and pulling in this data and using it for other means. So we looked at the way that robots could perceive the world as well. there was a need for the operative to have a view on how the robot was seeing the world, but also control the actions of the robot. So we had this requirement to think about how would a robot see the world. It would be 3D data, it would be infrared, it could be temperature, it could be motion vectors. There's all this kind of data that could be overlaid and understood in some way. And there's a lot of technology that's coming through. You've got LiDAR scanning, there's laser scanning, there's drones that are being used just for filming, and military operations kind of, dealing with bombs. So it's all becoming kind of relevant. And so we worked with the director on, and Andrew Gant, who's a VFX DOP, in creating, well, we didn't create this system. It's a hack of the Xbox Kinect lined up with a digital SLR like that one. And so you get, for every single frame of a film, you also get a 3D file. So you've essentially got a moving 3D sculpture when you get your film back. And it's the marriage of those two elements together that gave us a new element of information that we can manipulate.
The idea on this one was basically we tried to sell the idea how a robot or this dog sees the world, or this drone or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily human vision, but as I said, this is film, so something needed to come through to be able to understand what's going on. So we had all sort of topological lines, motion vectors, polygons, particles, everything that David mentioned earlier. So we just pulled it together, came up with a sort of like a perceived vision how this robotic animal could see the world. And yeah, that was what ended up being in the film. Just one more word about the technology. It's a really nice sort of like grassroots kind of like hack thing, because no one intended to use the Kinect for that kind of thing, but it's working really nice. It's the poor man's sort of like LiDAR scanning, as we called it. You get depth data, you get 3D objects immediately if you shoot something, which you can use in these kind of things.
And we also had to build a holographic interface that felt relevant. And the problem with this, as we said before with the VFX work, is you get shots back where actors are moving their hands around like this, and you somehow got to build a relevant interface that still feels authentic and real and true to the interaction, but you're designing around these movements because he's put his hand there and there and there, and those points are not interconnected in any way in the design. So that's a real challenge. The ideal for us would always be that we almost kind of direct the movements, but it's hard for the actors because it's hands waving in air really. And so we build up an amount of technicality and detail and depth to it so that it gives us options within the design work. And this was a real bonus for us, just thinking about the end of the film and how we could end it in a way that just kind of surmised the technical vision and the robot vision that was kind of the core theme of the film. And so Oliver was really excited about our work and just wanted to do a very elegant series of moves across detailed parts of our work and create an end title sequence out of that. So we touched on a lot of different parts of the narrative working on this film, which was great fun.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sorry. I didn't know how this machine worked.
I only want you.